Hey everyone, and welcome back to Spoons for Life. I'm Teresa, and I am so deeply glad you chose to spend this piece of your day here with me. Before we jump into anything, before we dive into the ideas, the stories, or the strategies, let's do our usual check-in. Just pause for a second. Take in a slow, deep breath, and let it go. Where are your shoulders hanging out right now? Are they up near your ears, holding onto the tension you didn't even realize you were carrying? Let them drop down in half inch. Soften the space between your eyebrows. Unclench your jaw, letting the tongue release from the roof of your mouth. If you need to lie down, lie down. If you need to let your hands sink heavy into your lap, or adjust that pillow behind your back, go ahead and do it. Whether you're listening to this from bed under a heavy duvet, curled up on the couch, wrapped in your favorite warm blanket, or slowly, at your own pace, getting through a quiet, low-key task today, know this. There is zero pressure here. You don't have to take notes. You don't have to optimize your life based on what you hear. And you certainly don't have to earn your place in this conversation. Whatever tiny drop or modest reserve of energy you brought into the space today, it is completely, undeniably enough. Now, today we are opening up a special 3-part series to close out Season 1. Over the next 3 episodes, we are tackling 2 massive, deeply personal, and often complicated parts of the human experience: love and health. Today's focus for episode 13 is called Loving Through Low Energy. Love is one of those topics that mainstream culture loves to paint in loud, bright, high-energy strokes. We are bombarded with images of what connection should look like. Spontaneous weekend getaways and late-night road trips, elaborate date nights, surprise parties, and sweeping romantic gestures. Flawless 50-50 division of physical labor in every single household chore and every single day. It's dynamic, it's fast-paced, and it demands constant physical, emotional, and social output. But let's look at our reality. What happens when your body simply doesn't operate on that specific wavelength? What happens when your daily energy budget, your spoon bank, is unpredictable, strictly limited, or chronically depleted? What does connection look like when a date night means sitting side by side in total silence because speaking requires too much air? Or when loving someone means having to say, I care about you so much, but I cannot leave this bed today. How do we give love, receive love, and build deep, resilient intimacy? Whether that be with a romantic partner, a close friend, or family. When our energy is our most finite and precious resource. Today, we're going to dismantle the toxic myth that love requires high physical or social output. We're going to talk about low spoon intimacy. We're going to re-image that closeness beyond physical stamina. Navigating that relational guilt, and we've talked about that relational guilt before. And then that quiet connection. Some practical and gentle ways to nurture your relationship without crashing out your system. So adjust your pillows and take a sip of your tea or water and take another deep breath and just get comfortable. So let's start out today by calling out the massive elephant in the room. The culture around romance is built for almost entirely high energy bodies. But think about it for a second. Think about the narrative we've been fed our entire lives about what makes a good partner, a good friend, or a good spouse. A good partner works 40 hours a week and then seamlessly transitions into putting on nice clothes to head out to a crowded, noisy dinner on a Friday night. A good partner plans elaborate surprise weekend getaways. A good partner does exactly their share of 50% of the vacuuming, the laundry, the meal prep, the dishes, and the yard work every single week without fail on a very predictable schedule. And a good partner is always ready for spontaneous adventures, always socially available, always physically active, and always up for one more thing. We've seen it in movies, we see it on social media, and we absorb it from the people around us. It is this pervasive ambient culture script that says love is validated through action, movement, and endless stamina. But what happens when you live with chronic illness? What happens when you're navigating autoimmune flares, chronic pain, neurodivergent burnout, or severe mental health slumps? What happens when your daily energy budget, your spoon bank, is unpredictable or chronically running on empty? When your body simply does not operate on that high output wavelength, that societal definition of partnership doesn't just feel out of reach. It becomes a relentless source of guilt. And I know that guilt so intimately. And I bet that many of you listening right now do as well. It's that quiet weight that settles in your chest when you have to cancel plans again. You lie there in the dark, listening to the world move outside your window, and you start asking yourself those agonizing late night questions. Am I a bad partner because I had to bail on that dinner reservation? Am I dragging my friend down because I can't match their energy? Am I pulling my weight in this house, or am I just a burden? How long until they get tired of adapting to my health? And how long until they burn out on me? If those exact thoughts have ever echoed in your mind, I want you to take a slow breath right now and listen to me very carefully. Your worthiness as a partner, a friend, or a loved one is not and never will be tied to your daily productivity or your physical stamina. Let me say that again. Your worthiness as a partner, as a friend, and as a loved one is not and never will be tied to your daily productivity or your physical stamina. Let that sit in your body for a second and let your shoulders drop as you absorb it. Love is not a transaction measured in physical output. When we evaluate our relationships using the corporate metric of who did what today, we strip away the humanity of connection and turn our bond into a ledger. We start keeping score. And here's the trap. When you're living with low energy, looking at a physical task ledger will always make you feel like you're in the red. If you're measuring love purely by how many loads of laundry got folded, how many social events you attended, or how many miles you walked hand in hand through the farmer's market, then yes, chronic fatigue or illness will make you feel like you're failing. But who decided that those are the primary currencies of love? Who decided that physical stamina is the price of admission to human intimacy? We live in a hyper-capitalistic culture that measures human value by output. Naturally, that culture infects our personal lives, convincing us that if we aren't producing something in a relationship, doing chores, planning events, providing constant entertaining banter, then we aren't bringing value to the table. And that's a lie. It is a fundamentally flawed way to measure human connection. Think about the people you love most in this world. Do you love them because of their ability to vacuum a rug? Do you love them because they can stay out until midnight without crashing? Of course not. You love them for their spirit. You love them for their kindness, their humor, the way they listen to you, the unique perspective they bring to your life, and the safety you feel when you're in their presence. Presence and stamina are two entirely different things. When you're low on spoons, your present doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. It becomes the ability to sit together in soft, comfortable silence. It becomes holding space for deep, meaningful conversations from bed or cuddled up in a chair. It becomes a shared joke from across the room or a gentle touch when words take too much air to speak. It becomes playing Snapchat games from 30 miles apart, just letting the other person know that you're there. If you're holding on to relationship guilt today, I want to invite you to burn that ledger. Stop treating your relationship like a business contract where tasks must always be split 50-50 on a daily clock. In a real, healthy, compassionate partnership, whether that's romantic, platonic, or familial, equity isn't about matching physical labor minute for minute. Equity is about mutual care, deep understanding, and meeting each other where you are with the energy you actually have. So as we go through this episode, I want us to build a brand new definition of intimacy. One that isn't built on dynamic outings or energy output, but on quiet stability, deep emotional presence, and the gentle low spoon care. Take a sip of water or tea, adjust your blanket, and let's talk about what low spoon intimacy actually looks like in practice. Let's get into talking about that guilt for a minute. And we've touched on the guilt before in previous episodes. But this guilt is very real. And it's often a very heavy tax on our already overloaded nervous systems. Think about what happens when a flare-up hits. You're lying in bed or collapsed on the couch, and you realize you have to cancel plans with your partner, your family, or a close friend again. for the third, fourth, fifth time in a row. In that moment, a second illness kicks in. The physical symptom is bad enough. The pain, the brain fog, the profound bone-deep exhaustion. But then comes the psychological storm, that guilt tax. And honestly, that guilt often takes twice as many spoons as the physical symptom itself. You lie there in the dark, not just feeling physically unwell, but mentally beating yourself up on a loop. You rehearse elaborate, hyper-apologetic speeches in your head. You analyze the tone of their text messages, searching for hidden resentment or disappointment. And you catastrophize. Man. You convince yourself that every canceled dinner or skipped party is another brick in the wall coming up between you and the people that you love. Here is the fundamental shift that we need to make together. Guilt assumes you're doing something wrong on purpose. Listen to that again. Guilt assumes that you are doing something wrong on purpose. Guilt is a reaction meant for moral failures. It's designed to pop up when you lie, when you betray someone, and when you consciously make a selfish choice that hurts another human being. Having limited energy, experiencing a sudden pain spike, or needing extra hours of bed rest is not a moral failure. It is not a choice that you made to inconvenience someone else, and it is not a character flaw. It is a biological reality for many of us. When you treat a physiological limit like a moral shortcoming, you place your nervous system in a state of perpetual fight or flight. You walk around feeling like a fraud in your own relationships, constantly waiting to be caught or punished for having a body that functions differently. So how do we dismantle this? How do we break the cycle of self-punishment when our bodies demand that we slow down? We start by shifting our language. And I know I've covered this before. I know I just covered this in 1 or 2 episodes ago. But I'm hitting on it again because it is that important that we do this. We have to move away from shame-based apologies and move towards honest, quiet communication. When we replace frantic guilt with grounded, quiet communication, the entire dynamic of a relationship transforms. Instead of apologizing for simply existing in a body that requires rest, we're able to pivot to expressing deep, genuine gratitude for your partner's understanding. So let's look at how this plays out in real life. Instead of sighing and saying, I'm so sorry. I'm ruining our night again, and I know you were looking forward to this, but I'm just broken today. But what happens if we shift the narrative and say, hey, my body hit a hard wall tonight and I need to stay in bed. But thank you so much for being such a safe, soft space for me when I need to slow down. Do you feel the difference in the energy of those two sentences? The first one places you in a position of debt. It paints you as a burden and forces you into an emotional deficit where you feel like you owe a tax for being unwell. And it puts your partner in the awkward position of having to manage your shame while they process their own disappointment. The second sentence invites them into true intimacy with you. It acknowledges their care, honors their support, and validates your body's real boundaries without a single drop of self-loathing. It turns a moment of physical limitation into a moment of relational trust. You aren't pushing them away with guilt. You're just letting them know that they can love you through the quiet moment. So let's take this a step further and look at the practical side of sharing a life with someone and that myth of a 50-50 split. We hear it all the time in traditional relationship advice. A healthy marriage is always an equal 50-50 split. Partnerships require equal division of labor at all times. And in a household where one or both people are navigating a fluctuating health, chronic illness, or low spoons, a strict 50-50 physical split is an absolute fantasy. Some days, because of a flare or a crash, the split's going to be 80-20. Some days it's going to be 90-10. And guess what? That flows both ways. On the days when your high-energy partner comes home completely burned out, emotionally drained, or sick themselves, maybe you're the one holding 70% of the emotional groundedness while they sit at 30. Equal partnership isn't about matching physical chores one-to-one on a 24-hour clock. It isn't about counting every folded shirt or washed dish on a daily scorecard. Equal partnership is about mutual care, shared commitment, and emotional presence. If you only have 10% total energy available in your spoon bank today, and you give that entire 10% to keeping yourself calm, staying present with your partner, and communicating gently, you have just given 100% of what you had. That is not a failure. That is complete, total dedication to the relationship. And when both people stop measuring the bond with a stopwatch and a chore chart, you give your relationship room to breathe and grow. And you create a home where health can fluctuate, bodies can rest, and love can exist without a price tag. If we accept that high energy, high output dates aren't the backbone of our relationships, a crucial question arises. How do we actually build and sustain genuine closeness? How do we keep love feeling deep, intentional, electric, and tender when our physical energy is at an absolute minimum? The answer is simple, though it requires us to unlearn almost everything that culture has taught us. We redefine what intimacy looks like. We throw out the high output playbook and start expanding our toolkit of low spoon love languages. And I've talked about some of this stuff before. I've talked about doing the adult parallel play, just like when you were toddlers and you played next to your friend, but not necessarily with the same toys as your friend. You still got that input. We can do the same thing here. Now, these are some practical and gentle ways to cultivate deep connection that require very few spoons and sometimes zero physical stamina, while still holding space for maximum emotional warmth. So let's break down 3 fresh, deeply comforting pillars of low spoon connection. Our first one is low spoken communication, or the low stem exchange. When you're in a flare or dealing with sensory overload, even the act of forming full sentences projecting your voice, or processing fast-paced speech can feel like you're running a marathon. Low-spoken communication is about creating explicit, low-effort ways to connect without demanding verbal stamina. So, what does this look like in real time? Spoon check codes. Establish simple hand gestures or a numeric scale check-in. Hold up 2 fingers or sending a single emoji can instantly communicate, I love you, but my brain has 0 verbal bandwidth right now. It saves you from having to give a long, exhausting explanation. Texting from the same room. I mean, who hasn't done this in a relationship? You and your partner are sitting side by side or just across the room from each other, and instead of physically talking, you text. So if you're lying on the bed and your partner is on the couch in the living room, don't force yourself to shout down the hallway or down the stairs or wherever. Send a text, a funny meme or a sweet text from just a few feet away. There's no rule that says intimacy absolutely has to be vocalized out loud. And then there's whisper mode. Intentionally lowering your speaking volume to a soft, close whisper when talking in bed, decreasing the acoustic energy required to speak instantly downregulates both of your nervous systems, making conversation feel like a shared secret rather than an effort. It's the quiet comfort of saying, I want to share my thoughts with you. I want to share my day with you. But I don't want to exhaust my body to do it. All right, our second one, somatic anchor points. When your physical stamina is low, touch often gets sidelined because we associate it with dynamic energy or high energy physical output. But somatic anchor points are about micro touch, small, grounding physical contact that grounds both of your nervous systems without requiring movement. Here are a few somatic anchors that you can build into your routine. Back-to-back grounding. Sitting or laying back-to-back in bed while reading, scrolling, or just simply resting. Feeling the steady rhythm of another person's breathing against your spine provides deep nervous system co-regulation without requiring eye contact or even conversation. The palm press. Simply placing the palm of your hand against your partner's palm or their chest for 10 seconds and taking one synchronized deep breath and then releasing it. It takes almost 0 physical strength, but it acts as an instant emotional reset. And then there's the targeted comfort touch, a gentle, low-effort massage, like slowly tracing patterns on your partner's palm or running your fingers through their hair, or gently pressing their feet under a heavy blanket while you watch a video together. This one is probably one of my favorites because I do have ADHD on top of everything else that I have. So my hands constantly have to be doing something. And I find when I'm cuddling with my partner, I'll just simply start tracing like figure eights on their arm, or I'll trace their tattoos, or just run my fingers up and down their arm or up and down their chest. It's calming and it's soothing and it's connecting. And it's very low energy. Somatic anchors don't demand physical endurance and they don't drain your spoon reserves. But over time, they build a deep, cellular feeling of safety, connection, and physical belonging. And then finally, we have the low energy date nights. Let's strip away the commercial noise and redefine what a date night actually is. A date night is simply nothing more than intentional time set aside to focus on each other. It doesn't require standing up, leaving the house, or putting on uncomfortable clothes. So here's some 3 brand new low energy date night ideas that you can try when the spoons are short. The window world date. Set up 2 comfortable chairs, a pile of pillows, or a bed right next to the window. Grab a cup of coffee or some water, dim the indoor lights, and spend 20 minutes simply watching the outside world go by together. Watching the rain hit the glass, the sunset light shifting across the trees and the stars coming out. It brings the feeling of going somewhere right to your resting space. Second one is low spoon world building. Lie comfortably side by side with your eyes closed or lights dimmed and play gentle, imaginative design games. Take turns describing your absolute dream cabin, a fictional peaceful island, or the ultimate cozy bookstore you'd build if money and energy were limitless. It engages your creativity and bonding without demanding physical effort. And then there's the silent documentary night. Put on a scenic nature documentary, a deep sea exploration film, or slow travel footage on mute. Turn off the main lights and play your favorite relaxing music album in the background. And snuggle under a weighted blanket. You get the visual beauty and shared experience of a screen date without the high sensory noise, dialogue overload, or eye strain. Intimacy isn't built in the extraordinary high energy cinematic moments. Intimacy is built in the quiet, soft corners of everyday life. The places where you feel safe enough to drop your armor, lay down your burden, and just be. Love doesn't ask you to burn yourself out to prove it exists. Real love meets you right where you are, resting softly on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, and with whatever amount of energy you have left today. Now, let's address the practical, everyday energy of any low spoon relationship. Communication. How do we actually communicate our fluctuating energy limits to a partner, a roommate, a family member, or even a close friend that in a way that feels crystal clear, loving, and entirely free of lingering resentment? And we've already touched on this a little bit. When our energy plunges, most of us, without even realizing it, fall into one of 2 dangerous extremes. The masking trap, where we pretend we have energy when we don't. We put on a brave face, we grit our teeth, and we push through severe pain or exhaustion. We go to that social event or force ourselves to finish that household chore. And then we suffer a massive, catastrophic, days-long crash that leaves us completely incapacitated. Or we go into the shutdown. We feel so overwhelmed by our lack of energy and so anxious about disappointing someone that we retreat inwardly. We become short, distant, irritable. We shut our loved ones out without explaining what's going on in our bodies, leaving them to guess why we're pulling away. And neither of these approaches serve us, and neither serves our relationships. Masking leads to a deep physical burnout and hidden resentment. Shutdowns lead to misinterpretation, where your partner assumes your silence or irritability is about them, rather than your body's energy budget. In order to break this cycle, we need a clear, low-friction communication system. Have a daily check-in system. If you share a home or a close life with someone, and you know that explaining your symptoms every single morning gets exhausting, you don't need to deliver a grand 10-minute medical update over coffee just to justify laying down. Instead, establish a simple, nonverbal, or shorthand daily check-in. Try using a simple 1 to 3 scale, a percentage readout, or a basic color coding system. A green or a level 3 means you have a full battery. I have decent spoons today, my body feels baseline manageable, and I can handle routine tasks, and I'd love to do something fun or active together later tonight. Yellow or level 2 is a low battery, handle with care type scenario. I'm running on low power. I can handle the basic essentials, but my system is very fragile right now. I need quiet rest periods, low sensory input, and extreme flexibility. And then red or level 1 is your survival or flare mode. I am in full survival mode today. My body needs maximum rest, minimal noise, and 0 extra tasks, and a quiet space to recover. Now, think about how much friction that eliminates. When you establish the shorthand with your people, it completely removes the guesswork. When you walk into a room in the morning and say, "Hey, I'm at a yellow today," your partner or your family immediately has the context that they need. They don't take it personally, and if you need to lie down in a quiet room, they don't expect fast, energetic responses to big questions, and they don't ask you what you want for dinner while you're still trying to process sensory input. It transforms what could have been a point of tension into a shared management strategy. It turns you and your partner into a team managing a budget together instead of separately. Let's look at a specific word-for-word script that you can use when you're setting a firm boundary with love and replacing guilt with connection. Scenario 1. You're declining an invitation or you're backing out of plans. The old response would be, "I'm so sorry. I know I always cancel on you. I'm just the worst person ever. My body is failing me again and I don't want to ruin your night, so just go on without me." Our low spoon love script. "I love that you invited me and I was so looking forward to spending time together. My body has hit absolutely 0 and I need to stay home and rest. I'd love to stay connected. So can you send me a quick text later and tell me all about it? Or we can plan a quiet horizontal hangout next week." Look at what that shift does. It affirms your love for them, sets an unshakable boundary for your health, and offers an accessible alternative, all without begging for forgiveness for having a body that needs rest. Scenario 2. Your partner is working on house tasks while you're resting. Your old defensive response was, "I'm so sorry. I'm just lying here while you do everything, and I am not pulling my weight today." Our low spoon love script flips that and says, "I see how hard you're working around the house right now, and I appreciate you taking care of our home so much. I'm resting my body so I don't crash, but I am so grateful for the energy that you are putting in today." The second one, that second script operates and it validates their effort and expresses genuine gratitude while keeping your own rest grounded and shame-free. You're not apologizing for resting. You're thanking them for being a supportive partner. Now, as we practice these new ways of communication, remember one important thing. For loved ones who don't navigate chronic conditions or energy limits, it takes time for them to unlearn societal expectations too. We have to unlearn it ourselves in order to make ourselves understand our own bodies. they have to unlearn it as well so that they know how to support us. They've grown up in the same high output, hustle driven culture that we have. And they might not instinctively understand why a 2-hour social gathering takes 3 days of recovery, or just why just pushing through isn't an option for your nervous system. Be patient with them as they try to learn your shorthand and stay clear and firm in your boundaries. Educating the people who love us isn't about defending our illness. It's about giving them the roadmap to love us well without causing us harm. And never forget, true love will never demand that you set yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. So take a slow, deep breath. Give yourself grace as you try out these new scripts. And let's keep learning about how to build a life that honors the bodies that we actually have. As we start wrapping up today's episode, I want to pause and leave you with a gentle, unshakable reminder that I hope you can carry with you into the rest of your week. Love is not something you have to earn through physical effort or productivity. Listen to that again. Love is not something you have to earn through physical effort or productivity. You do not need to be symptom-free to be lovable. You do not need to be high energy, constantly cheerful, or endlessly productive to deserve deep connection, warmth, safety, and tenderness. We live in a world that constantly tells us our value comes from what we do, how much we achieve, how fast we move, how much physical ground we cover. But true, resilient connection doesn't care about your daily output. The people who truly belong in your life, the ones who deserve access to your heart and to your story, will love you when you're feeling bright, vibrant, and capable. And they will love you just as fiercely, quietly, and completely when you are resting in a dark room in your lowest spoon season. If all you did today was keep yourself safe, fed, and rested, you did enough, and you are enough. Today was just one part of our special 3-part season 1 wrap-up series, navigating the intersection of love and health. We have 2 incredibly special episodes waiting for you over the next 2 weeks to close out this season. Next week for episode 14, we are going to be looking at making peace with a body that needs extra care. We're shifting that focus inward, turning that gentle compassion onto our relationship with our physical selves. We're going to explore body neutrality, learning how to move past that heavy sense of physical betrayal when your body doesn't behave the way you want it to, and building a practical, tender self-compassion when health challenges feel relentless. And then in 2 weeks, for episode 15, we're going to look at our care team. Love, health, and choosing who your people are. We're going to close out season 1 with a grand finale, and it's a big, cozy look at community care. Learning how to self-advocate in medical and personal spaces without draining your last drop of energy, and celebrating non-linear progress in a culture obsessed with quick fixes. Before you head back to your day, adjust your blankets or drift off to rest. I have just one very tiny 0 spoon piece of homework for you, and only if you feel called to try it. Sometime today or tomorrow, pick one person in your life, a partner, a close friend, a sibling, or a mentor, and offer them a single micro gesture of care. Send a low-pressure text like, "I'm thinking of you today." You don't have to reply. Or offer a 5-second shoulder squeeze as you pass them in the house. or simply say a quiet, grounded, "Thank you for being in my corner." Notice how it feels to initiate real connection without spending a single spoon that you don't have. Notice how intimacy thrives in those tiny, low output moments. So thank you so much for spending this quiet piece of your day with me. Creating the space for us to share these honest conversations means the world to me. And if today's episode brought you a little bit of comfort or gave you a new way to think about your relationships, consider sharing it with a partner, a friend, or a loved one who might benefit from hearing it. Or if you have a spare drop of energy, leave a soft star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Patreon. Leaving that helps other low spoon folks find our quiet little corner of the internet. Take gentle care of yourselves today. Rest deeply and lower those sky-high expectations. Drop your shoulders down one more time. And remember, you are worthy of love exactly as you are right now. I'll talk to you next week.